Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our Terp family chat. We're just going to wait another minute to let some more folks join, and then we will get started. So please be patient. Okay, we will go ahead and get started. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Terp family chat for July. My name is Brian Watkins, and I am the director of the Office of Parent and Family Affairs. And I'm glad to see so many of you join us this evening on Zoom. This session is being recorded. If you have a family member or friend who is unable to join, they can view the recording, which will be posted on our Terp family YouTube page tomorrow. If you have not attended an orientation session and are unfamiliar with our office, I want to make sure you know that the Office of Parent and Family Affairs serves as the single point of contact at the university for the parents and family members of our undergraduate students. Consider us your home at the university. Our goal is to educate and engage all of you in becoming informed partners in your undergraduate students' education, personal development, and success. Terp Family Chat is our special summer online series designed to help the newest members of the Terp family prepare for fall semester. We recognize the many challenges presented by COVID-19, and we felt this is a good opportunity to share updates and timely information with you. The focus of tonight's session is academic success for fall semester. Now, with all of that being said regarding updates and timely information, I also want to manage everyone's expectations by noting that our speakers tonight will provide you with what we know at this time. And that means there will still be unanswered questions. We understand the frustration that comes with uncertainty and the unknown. Like you, we live in that uncertainty and unknown in our lives. As we all have witnessed over the past several months, nothing is fixed and definitive in the midst of this pandemic. Know that everyone at the university is making the most sound public health decisions possible based on what we know at this moment. And what we know today can change tomorrow. This means we have to respond, adapt, and change accordingly, which we have done and will continue to do. The health and safety of our entire university community, including students, faculty, and staff, is our top priority. Before I introduce our first speaker, let me review the format for tonight's Terp Family Chat. Each of our speakers will share or review information with you, and then our remaining time together will be spent answering your questions. We welcome your questions, so please use the Q&A feature on Zoom. You can enable this by clicking the Q&A button located at the bottom of the Zoom window. You are welcome to submit questions as you think of them throughout the presentation. We will monitor the questions as we go. We have some staff members who may be able to answer them immediately in writing, or we'll save them and ask them live during the Q&A portion. All of you can see the questions that others submit. If you see someone submit the same question you have, rather than repeat your question, I encourage you to click on the thumbs up icon under the question you like. This is called an upvote, and it will move the question up higher into the Q&A window so it gets more attention by us. With hundreds of questions submitted, we won't be able to get to everyone's questions. To get us started, it is my pleasure to introduce our first speaker, Shannon Gundy, Executive Director of the Office of Undergraduate Admissions. Shannon.
Good evening, everyone. I'm very glad that you've chosen to spend your evening with us, and we hope that you'll find that this is really a good use of your time. As Brian said, my name is Shannon Gundy, and I'm the Executive Director of Undergraduate Admissions here at the University of Maryland. I hope that you remember that I signed your students' letter of admission and delivered the very good news that we wanted them to join the Maryland family. We were very excited to offer your student admission to the university, which is one of the most talented classes in the history of the University of Maryland. And believe it or not, our jobs in the admissions office aren't over quite yet. And I'm here tonight because I want to make sure that you have all the information you need to take those next steps and join us at Maryland this fall. Yesterday, your students should have received an email from me which shares some pretty helpful information about courses for the fall semester. If you haven't had a chance to review this information, I strongly encourage you to do so. The information about our instructional plan will be very valuable, and it includes information about how to learn which of our courses will be taught online, in person, or through blended learning. I also want to call your attention to a message from our provost, Dr. Marianne Rankin. If you haven't already viewed this message, it can be found on the homepage of the university's website under the heading Fall Semester Update. We want you to know that the plans we've made for your students this fall have been made very carefully, deliberately, and with immense feedback from our community. We've worked with faculty and students to learn what they wanted and thought they needed to continue to ensure that a University of Maryland education is among the very best in the country. That feedback has been weighed very heavily and incorporated into our fall opening plan. Our faculty have shared with us how they feel their courses can be delivered in the most effective and safe manner. We've worked with our students and learned that they wanted us to develop a plan that considered that some students would want to come to campus because they need to have quiet places to work and study. Some students need to be able to access the technology and internet resources we provide. Others want to be able to access faculty members before and after classes, and some really wanted to take advantage of the opportunity to safely interact and build community with other students. Of course, we learned lots from our experiences when we had to move to a remote learning environment this spring with the onset of COVID-19. We took what we learned then, combined it with the feedback we've gotten from our community members, and come up with a plan that we're excited about. This plan is one that we think reflects the innovation of the Maryland community and our commitment to excellence in education. Our plan for the fall is based on 4 principles. I'm not going to read all of them to you, but I hope you will read the full information on our website. I do, though, think it's important for you to know that we are prioritizing the health of our students, faculty, and staff above all else. We're using a combination of in-person and remote course options to maximize flexibility and equity of access and to accommodate the needs of faculty members and students who may not be able to return to campus because of the risks associated with COVID-19. We commit to offering each Maryland student a deeply engaging curriculum, and we continue to be committed to creating an inclusive, just, respectful, and supportive environment for all members of our community. Our fall semester classes will begin on August 31st, 2020 as scheduled, and the semester will run its full length with classes ending on my birthday, December 14th, 2020. We also know that there is a possibility that the pandemic may resurge in the late fall, so we've directed our faculty members who are teaching in-person courses to be prepared to move classes entirely to online instruction should that become necessary. If that happens, fall semester final exams will be conducted remotely, and students will not be expected to return to campus after Thanksgiving. However, if health conditions permit, residence halls are expected to remain open. We're very hopeful that all the work we've done and the measures we've put in place to ensure that we're providing an excellent and safe educational experience for your student further confirms that you've made the right decision about enrolling at Maryland this fall. However, we do know that there may be a few students who feel as though they're unable to join us on campus this fall. Because of this, we've extended the deadline by which students can request a deferral of their admission. Students who have confirmed their intention to enroll but need to request a deferral must submit the deferral request by July 24th. To learn more about the deferral process and find the deferral application form, you can visit the admissions office website and search for deferral. If a deferral is granted, the student's updated admission will include all the same components as the original admission. For example, scholarships, program invitations, etc., will all be a part of their admission for the following semester. As most of your students will be joining us this fall, We want to make sure that you have all the information you need to take the next important step. So I'll turn things back to Brian so we can give you your next steps.
Thank you, Shannon. I would like to introduce our next speaker, Lisa Kiley, the Assistant Dean in Undergraduate Studies and our Undergraduate Student Ombudsperson. And Lisa, before you start presenting, would you please tell us what an Ombudsperson does and about your role as the Undergraduate Student Ombudsperson?
Good evening, everyone. I'm excited to be here today, and I just wanted to follow Shannon by saying it is 45 days until the first day of classes, so we're getting very, very close. The undergraduate ombudsperson is an impartial and objective individual as it uses a resource for students here on campus. We want to make sure that all students have fair and equitable treatment at Maryland. And my role is to assist students with issues when they are unable to solve those themselves or through the usual channels. I can provide information on policies, on rights and responsibilities that students have. And probably most important is to refer students and to facilitate sometimes that referral to offices who can help resolve those issues. So that's a little bit about what the ombudsperson does. Okay. As I said, it's 45 days until the first day of classes, a very exciting time every year for us. Many of your students, probably most of your students, have already been to orientation and have registered for classes. Just a note, if they haven't, then there is still time to do so, to go to the orientation website and sign up. What's great about orientation is that there is an extended period of time with the advisor and the student to work on the schedule for the fall. One-on-one, they're conducted over Zoom, but the academic advisors don't just tell you what to take for classes. Academic advisors will help you understand the requirements of your major, requirements of the general education courses. They can help you with academic policies. They can talk to you about internships, research opportunities, things like that. And they really are just a great resource of this campus. One of the things that all new students are required to do in their first semester are to develop a 4-year graduation plan. Because just like you, we want them to graduate in 4 years. We want to make sure they take the right classes in the right sequence. And we want to make sure that they are prepared for the next classes that they go into. So a 4-year graduation plan helps students do that, and it helps them on their goal to academic success. I want to call your attention, as Shannon mentioned, to the schedule of classes that was just updated yesterday. It's important for all students to take a look at it now, find their class, and find out how it is being offered in the fall. Now, there are 3 ways classes are offered. They are in person, which means you will come to campus, sit in a classroom with faculty members, online, or blended. So blended could be a combination of both face-to-face and online. Sometimes in person, sometimes you'll be there online. Let me give you an example of a blended. You may have a class that is Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 11 o'clock. Maybe on Monday, half of the class is there in person. Wednesday, the other half is there. And on Friday, everybody is online. So each class, when you looked at the scheduled classes, will tell you how it's being offered and will include other information that will help you understand. Now, if your class is online, it may be synchronous, asynchronous, or a combination of both. So synchronous, if we go back to the Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 11, it means that the student is there live on Zoom with the faculty and the other students during that scheduled time. For an asynchronous class, it means that the faculty has recorded the class and the students can watch it when they, at their leisure, when they want to do that. And then a combination could be that on Monday and Wednesday, the class is synchronous. So you're all there together online, but on Friday, it's an asynchronous, which means you can watch the class or go to class, so we say, when you'd like to do that. Like to do it is the right word. But that really brings me to an important issue with starting college, and that's time management. Studying in college and going to classes in college is really different than high school. There is much more free time, much less structure, and more responsibility, individual responsibility to keep up with classes, get the work done. So as you can imagine, time management is even more crucial if you have an asynchronous class. It would be very easy to say, I think I'll look at that class tomorrow, or maybe the next day, or maybe the next time. We really recommend that students map out a week. So you map out the synchronous classes or the in-person classes, and then map out the time that you will be watching or attending the asynchronous classes. So you don't get to the end of the week, you're about to start another week of class and you're already behind. So map out a time, map out time to take care of yourself, say working out, visiting with friends, attending classes, and studying, okay? Sometimes some of our most talented students get caught up with the fact that there is much more time to study and they think they can put it off. We have lots of resources for students on a tutoring website about programs on how to learn how to study, how to take notes, all kinds of resources about time management. And we really encourage you to encourage your students to take advantage of those. Another thing that's a really, really important factor is faculty members and faculty members' office hours. On the syllabi, faculty members will list when their office hours. For example, maybe it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 12 to 2. If a student is unable to make it during that time, students should contact the faculty member, say, I'm in your Wednesday morning class, I'm not able to make office hours, could we meet at another time? Faculty love to have students come to office hours. It may be intimidating at first, but really encourage your sons and daughters to do that. Faculty members will also let students know, I like to be contacted either by phone or by email, things like that, so that the student knows exactly what is expected of them when getting in touch with a faculty member. I could go on and on with all kinds of advice for you. This is a really, really exciting time. I'm happy to answer any questions in the chat. This is an exciting time for you parents as well. And I wish you all well. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. I appreciate all the resources that you just shared and emphasized. You know, for those family members who've been able to be part of our Parent and Family Affairs live session during orientation, you've heard me say this, so I apologize for the repeat, but it's a reminder that this is a process. What your student is experiencing is a process. And you know, they won't start classes and just magically become a college student. It takes time. And so what really is happening is that they are a high school student in college during that initial period, because that's what they know. And they're really good at being high school students because that's how they got admitted. And so we know that they have the skills, but it's a relearning process. And so it might mean that you as a parent family member can just continue to provide that encouragement, because for some of the students, this will be a really quick and painless process. And for others, it will be slower and more challenging, and it could take a while. So just keep all of that in mind, and know that we have resources to help students. And I know that I want to introduce our next speaker, Ann Smith, Assistant Dean at Undergraduate Studies, who will share a little bit more information. Ann.
So happy to be here to meet with you all tonight. I'm going to talk a little bit about the academics and the courses that your students will experience on campus. For faculty, preparing to teach is a design opportunity. We think about what we would like our students to learn, what knowledge, what skills, and we're very intentional about the choices that we make when we're developing a course, taking into account who will be our students and the prior knowledge, perspectives, and experiences that they will bring to the class. We have some tried and true approaches for course designs that we depend upon. However, when we're looking to innovate a bit, it helps to apply some constraints to get us thinking about teaching in new ways. Well, this summer, simultaneously, all faculty experienced and were provided a constraint to teach online. So there was a bit of a pause, and then there was a call for proposals from our provost to support innovations in teaching. And then the magic began to happen. By June 15th, we had over 300 proposals for innovations in course designs. I happened to be on the committee with a few other faculty and senior administrators to review those proposals. We all kept saying, this is our favorite committee. Twice a week for about a month, we had the pleasure of reading the truly creative course design ideas. For example, bringing virtual reality tours into an introduction geography course, where students would have the opportunity to explore Machu Picchu and how the Incas used stone carvings, sundials, and water receptacles to measure features on the Earth's surface. And the students would visit London and investigate how John Snow, the founder of modern epidemiology, mapped the distribution of deaths and locations of water pumps during the 1850s cholera outbreak. And then students would consider how this mapping led to the finding that cholera is a waterborne illness. Faculty now, this summer, are working collaboratively within and across departments to create new learning experiences in the online environment that were inconceivable when we were restricted to a particular time and space. Our Teaching and Learning Transformation Center and our Academy of Innovation and Entrepreneurship are providing all kinds of support to faculty as they explore and iterate on these designs. From an Academy week-long innovation incubator that engaged both faculty and students, for example, our incoming SGA president, emerged the design for an interviewing project where first-year students will investigate the impact of the pandemic on Prince George's County. Faculty are incorporating course projects where students will work in teams to use industry standard technology applications that will serve them well at Maryland, also as they enter their future careers. Producing and editing videos, using Adobe Spark, brainstorming in Google Jamboard, learning coding strategies to analyze and make meaning of data sets. For example, in an intro journalism course, where they will use data to tell stories. Yesterday, I had the opportunity to attend a workshop with 9 faculty who teach I-Series courses. These are signature courses of our general education program. All students are required to take 2 I-Series courses for their University of Maryland degree. These courses are taught in all disciplines from the perspective of a big question. In this workshop, the faculty, all working on their distinct courses, collaborated on the innovations in their course designs. One of the courses that looks at questions of weather and climate, The professor will be inviting speakers from all over the world to his class. Now on Zoom, our students will have access to our faculty and their network of colleagues, in this case from NASA and NOAA. Two of the faculty in the workshop, one from linguistics and another from English with expertise in film, are imagining a cross-course project where teams of students in each class are going to collaborate to create a visualization of how honeybees communicate. Faculty from every department are engaged in innovation and creating virtual experiences that will be found in our online courses or complement face-to-face and blended courses. These include our full range of courses, from sculpture to microbiology. All of this work in innovative course design and creating new experiences in teaching and learning is going to take advantage of the current technologies and address current questions in our disciplines, as well as pressing issues. All of these faculty are so excited as they're preparing these new ways of teaching and learning. At the University of Maryland, fall 2020, courses will be different than fall 2019. They're going to be more innovative, more engaging, and current. Really, we are truly looking forward to working with our incoming students. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. Now I'd like to introduce Bill Cohen, the Associate Provost and Dean of Undergraduate Studies. Bill.
Thank you, Brian. I'm really pleased to have a chance to meet all of you and say hello. As Brian said, I'm the Associate Provost. I'm Dean for Undergraduate Studies, and our office has oversight of undergraduate educational programs around the campus, and we provide guidance to many of the majors and special programs and help with integrating and organizing the undergraduate educational program for all students at the university. And I really just want to very briefly say how excited we are to have this new class in 2020 come join us in a few weeks. This class of students are pioneers. We know they are going through experiences that no one has ever gone through before. They are really incredibly resilient. We know the end of their senior year in high school was not what any of them or any of you anticipated. And it looks like the fall of their freshman year in college is going to be very unlike what anyone would have anticipated. But we are so committed. You've heard from everyone who's come before me in this program about the hard work that's been done on behalf of students and on behalf of faculty to ensure that we have an incredibly robust and deep and profound educational experience on offer to students. We have been working very hard all summer and since last spring to balance these different considerations. We are totally committed to the academic experience that students have on our campus, and we are also totally committed to the health and safety of all the members of our community. And you've heard about many of the different dimensions of how those considerations get balanced and weighed against each other. We set out as a principle at the very beginning of this that no student and no faculty member would be required to come onto campus to teach or learn. And that principle has really guided what we've done in terms, in terms of organizing the educational program. And that means that students who, for whatever reason, wish not to come onto campus in the fall, they can still have a full schedule. They'll be able to take many classes and not be hindered in their degree progress. It also means that faculty who, for whatever their own health considerations might be, choose not to teach on campus in person, can still teach, can still offer students the value of their expertise. And that ability of the university to still deliver this educational program from its world-class faculty is really what we're talking about here. So that has not changed. Students will be taking the same classes from the same faculty who are pioneering researchers in their own fields, who are award-winning teachers, who have worked hard, as Anne suggested, through this process all summer to build these classes, thousands of workshops and development programs that have been on offer for faculty. This is really, we think, going to serve students very, very well. We're so excited for these students to join us. We know there are a lot of concerns that families have about students' ability to learn in this new environment. But as Anne has suggested, there are some pretty exciting things that this strange situation that we're in have opened up to us. The visiting speakers, connections to other students around the world and faculty and experts, projects that could never have been done or conceived of before, service projects in some cases, connections to other communities. These are really things that have been developed this summer and are going to be implemented in the fall. I also want to go back to something that Shannon mentioned, which is that we talk to students a lot in the spring and after the spring to hear about what their experiences were like. We surveyed them extensively. We conducted focus groups over the course of the summer, and we asked them really what was important to them about being here. Of course, they would like to take classes in person if it's possible, but what we learned was that was not necessarily the most important thing about being on campus. And if it's possible for students to be on campus safely, then the opportunity to interact with other students, to make friends, to participate in activities on the campus, to have access to internet connection and study spaces and all the resources that the campus can offer are still really, really important. And we're going to do our best to support that, provided we can stay within the guidelines of the state and the county health expectations. Brian said at the beginning, conditions are changing day by day, week by week. We follow this just as you do. There's still a lot of uncertainty. Things could get worse, things could get better over the course of this whole semester. And we're trying to be responsive. We're trying to offer students a very rich and rewarding and credible educational experience this fall. So I know you've got lots of questions. I know there's a lot of uncertainty and anxiety. And so I think we can probably go at this point to Q&A. I'm not sure if there were any other speakers, but I know there's lots of questions there for us.
Thank you, Bill. We will indeed go to our Q&A portion of our session now, and there are lots of questions to work through. So I will say this again to those of you who've submitted questions and upvoted. We won't be able to answer all of them. We will try to do our best now, and anything that we don't get to, there are some of these things that are addressed in the University of Maryland's For Maryland website, and I will give you that link at the end of the Q&A. So before we close out the Terp family chat, and that's a really good place to find answers to questions. And if there, for those of popular questions that are submitted here, there might be an opportunity to add those into the FAQ for the university. So we will hold on to all of these after the session is over, and think about how best to respond to your questions. So if someone could, so one of the questions was about if a student becomes ill, how are they supported and in their recovery? What is the process with notifying faculty, and what are the expectations? If someone would be willing to address that, please. Lisa, do you mind taking that one?
The university has an excused absence policy that covers a number of situations. Students normally contact the faculty member if they need to be out. We can put up the link to those policies for folks to understand. The student will then work with the faculty member on how to make up that information that the student missed that day. I think it would be important just to read the policy so students understand that. We certainly understand that this might be a different semester when it comes to issues of absences from classes. The most important thing I would have you walk away from this conversation is to be proactive, not for a student to come back after being ill and saying, I was out during this time, I was sick, but instead contact the faculty member right away, or if the student isn't able to do that, a family member can contact the academic college or the academic advisor, and that information can go out to all the students' faculty members. The most important thing you'd want to do is have your student follow up when they are able to do so.
Thank you, Lisa. This was covered a little bit already, but I'm gonna pose this in a different way and see if we could just speak to some of the ways, the conversations that have taken place from faculty to think about how they might engage students in like a small group learning environment, whether that's online or in person. What have there been conversations about that? What might that look like? Anne or Bill, either one. Anne?
Sure.
Thank you.
Working in teams or small groups is something we value at the university. We see a lot of opportunity in learning for that. So it's a common strategy in courses that students will work in teams on projects. And we saw many, and when we were looking at the course redesign, many of the courses, including team projects, there's lots of values in it. The students get to know each other, and then of course they learn this new skill of working in teams, which is going to help them on campus and beyond. So I think that students will find that in their courses. They can certainly ask faculty when they're registered for a course. They can contact a faculty and ask about that. But it is a way that we value. We know it's a great way for students to get to know each other and build a sense of community. And it's something that we try to build into our courses.
Could I add one point to that, which is that, I know we've gotten lots of questions about why so many courses went online. And in part, we, like everywhere else in the world right now, we have to think about the physical space that we inhabit from the perspective of safety. And so for courses that are meeting in person, of course, the physical safety guidelines are paramount, and that means keeping, all these rules, everyone wearing masks, everyone keeping 6-foot distance at a minimum. So for courses that meet in person, even a small class has to meet in a very large room. And so there are space constraints on the number of large rooms we have. But one of the other interesting effects of that change is that courses like the ones that Anne is describing, where students might get into small groups, typically in the past, they would have gotten together in one corner of the room or turned their chairs around and worked on a project together, 3 or 4 or 5 students. We can't do that in a classroom anymore because of the physical distance requirements. However, we can do that really effectively in Zoom through breakout rooms and through other kinds of media that permit this. So in some cases, a faculty member might have thought, actually, I'd like to teach in person. But then when they came up against this, this real imperative that they feel for students to work together in groups, they realized that Zoom was actually a better option for them than trying to overcome that, the need to do that in person would have the challenges that would have posed.
Thank you both. Bill, to just keep you in the hot seat for a minute, could you please give a little bit of context for how the determination was made for a class to be online, blended, or in person? What went into that decision-making process?
Sure. Well, there were a number of considerations, and the reason we took our time a little bit to do this, and July 15th was the day we said we'd release that schedule, was because we really needed to figure out a number of different things. First, we needed to find out from every faculty member if they were willing and able to teach in person. And as I said before, we had said to faculty that we wouldn't require them to teach in person if they were unable or unwilling to do so. Secondly, we knew that we had these space constraints that I alluded to, and so we weren't going to be able to put 20 students in a classroom that has the capacity for 20 people anymore. So we had to do some prioritizing of which classes needed to be in person if they had a faculty member who could teach them in person. And so we went to the academic departments and colleges and said, please tell us which of these classes are your priority for meeting in person. And often that had to do with the particular nature of the subject matter. So certain lab courses where the experience would be very, very difficult to replicate remotely, experiential learning courses, other kinds of courses that have an inherently in-person component that would just be so challenging to do by any other means, those courses got priority for the schedule. Then we had to go back several times to make sure that we had the spaces aligned with the needs from the perspective of the departments and the faculty. And so all of those factors together combined to produce the schedule that was released yesterday. We also wanted to reduce the number of disruptions to the schedule to the greatest extent possible, so that students plan their course schedules very carefully so that there are conflicts. We wanted to keep courses that were scheduled at a certain time. If they had been planned in person and now they're being delivered synchronously online, they stayed in their original time slots, so students wouldn't have to then rush around rearranging their entire schedules after they'd already registered for classes.
Thank you, Bill. In a perfect world with online coursework, everything's going to work. Technology is going to work. Students from home or from wherever they are will have the ability to stream and to the extent that they need to. But what happens when there are problems and issues and things aren't working as they need to? How are kind of accommodations will be in place? I'm not sure who wants to tackle that one.
Accommodations for classes? For
yeah, what does a student do, or there's a class and the professor is teaching and all of a sudden everything goes down. What happens?
Well, I can say from the benefit of experience from the spring when we were really very worried about that question, because we, like many other institutions and many other parts of all of our lives, had to move very, very quickly from life as we knew it to suddenly everything being really different. And our division of IT cautioned us that there was the worry that the internet wouldn't be able to support all of these classes meeting online, that the platforms we use wouldn't be adequate, that the bandwidth wouldn't make it. And so at that time, we encouraged all faculty to conduct their classes asynchronously so that we would minimize the load at any given time. And what we found was that actually we had very few technological disruptions. We really didn't hear about that happening very often, if at all. And we learned, one of the other lessons we learned from the spring was that students seemed, in many cases, to be more engaged in synchronous courses. And so we really encouraged faculty, again, depending on the subject matter, depending on the size of the course, depending on a number of constraints, but we encouraged faculty, if they could, to have a synchronous component in their course when they designed it for the fall. We didn't see those technology difficulties. We also had a lot of worry in the spring about students having access to technology. And our IT division also was concerned that students have access to laptops, access to internet connections, and they have a loaner program for both laptops and hotspots that they made available to students. And again, we found that some students needed that and they were shipped this equipment overnight. But in most cases, students, that just didn't turn out to be as big of a problem as we had worried it might be. So again, students on campus will have access to the technology resources of the campus. Students who are off campus who really don't have any alternatives, we can make technology available to them on an as needed basis.
Thank you. We've had several questions related to study spaces, because that might be a challenge in a residence hall setting, and with some limited spaces. So what kind of other spaces will be available on campus? Can anyone speak to that? Hi, Betsy.
Hi, maybe I'll try to answer that
Thank
one.
you.
I'm Betsy Beese, Associate Provost for Academic Planning and Programs. Because we're not using all of our classrooms for in-person instruction, some of them are just with physical distancing are a little bit too small. We're planning to make a number of those available as study spaces. And we're still working on that process. We have a dozen or so identified right now, but I think that number will grow as we get closer to the fall. There also will be outdoor spaces. We're improving the seating around the campus so that when the weather's good, there'll be opportunities for engaging in class outside of, in various places around the campus in our online classes.
Thank you. We've had a number of questions about how we will engage first-year students in getting them acclimated to campus, but also I think just forging connections and making sure that students are connected. And I can speak to that and also put a plug in for our next Terp Family Chat in August, because that is the focus of our August session is being in community, how we are going to create community in this COVID-19 environment and with the restrictions that we have, and also what's expected of folks being on campus and being in community with each other, with face coverings and all of that. So we're going to cover a lot of that in August, but I do want to note that we are in lots of conversations about how we can best make sure that students are connecting with each other. And there's a lot of creativity going around in the conversations that I've heard about different events and activities that can take place online and in a smaller physically distanced way, if that's possible. So lots of conversations taking place. There will be welcoming activities for those who are on campus, but again, it's not going to be in the traditional sense that one might be used to, or that your other student who came to Maryland experienced, because we just can't deliver activities in the same way that we have in the past. So I know that's an answer and it's a little vague, but those are the kinds of things that are, that are still in conversation and still being planned. Because things are changing, it's difficult for us to kind of wrap our heads around what is possible. And but we are working on it, and we've just kind of taken things, what's important in this moment now, and taking that in each stage. And so this is kind of the next phase of what we're talking about. All right, give me one moment to scroll these questions. Shannon, would you mind just one more time just speaking a little bit about deferring, and in particular, if a student defers for fall, would they be able to re-engage with their living learning program in the spring? They don't want to lose out on that experience. Can you talk a little bit about that, please?
So students who've been offered admission to the university for one semester can defer their admission up to 1 year. So if a student is offered admission for the fall, they can defer to the spring or to the fall semester. Most students will defer for the full year. So they would most likely be enrolling for the following fall semester. Students who were admitted for the spring semester are not able to defer their admission to the following fall, but must defer to the following spring. When we grant a student's request for a deferral, we let the student know that their admission to the university has been deferred, and everything that came along with their offer of admission to the university will move with them. So if the student was fortunate enough to have received a merit scholarship or to have been invited into one of our living and learning programs, that will be deferred with them. So they will still have those benefits when they enter the university for the appropriate following term.
Thank you, Shannon. If the number of cases decreases at some point this fall, will classes then go back to in-person for fall? I know the answer, but I'm gonna let someone else answer.
I could try to field that one. Probably not. And the reason primarily is that we're very aware of the fact that families and students will have made some housing decisions. They will have made other kinds of decisions based on what their schedule actually is. And that could cause some real challenges for students who are not planning to be on campus. So we have asked faculty not to make the decision now and to try to stick with it. There may be a few cases where there will be some changes, but we're trying to watch that very carefully and pay attention to who's in the classroom and whether it's going to work for the students who are already registered.
Thank you, Betsy. I apologize for the downtime. It's hard to multitask and look through all of these questions. I'm also trying to listen to everyone, and this is not easy. There have been some questions about students and if they're living on campus, can they travel home on the weekends, and should they travel home at Thanksgiving, since nothing has been announced yet about plans for post-Thanksgiving. I will say that there was some guidance that was provided to students, and really what we hope is that students are thinking very carefully about if they're living on campus or even in College Park, if they're living off campus, to think very critically about the travel and doing that on a whim on a weekend. Yes, we want them to, they're going to miss you, and certainly we want them to be able to visit. But to take into account, is this a travel by car, which might be a little bit safer than trains and planes? And so those are the kinds of things that I think is really important for all of you to discuss together as a family, of whether that's the best thing for your student. And certainly taking into account how the cases are in your local community, and if that's worth having your student come home to and then returning to campus. With Thanksgiving, it seems so far out, given everything that we are trying to work through. It's hard to think about what Thanksgiving might look like. And so, I think as a family to, again, think about whether or not that's a trip that you want to plan now. But certainly, I suspect or hope that, in the next 4 to 8 weeks, we're certainly going to maybe know a little bit more about how things are progressing nationally, and then in particular in the state of Maryland and in your home areas, and what's happening. So that's the note about travel. Anyone with how about textbooks for classes? What are there digital formats for textbooks? What are faculty doing?
I think many faculty are making arrangements for, many faculty are were already doing this, but increasingly are turning to online resources. Certainly the library has made all of its digital collections and has expanded its digital collections and subscriptions and increased its digital reserves. For students who want physical copies of books that they want to order from the bookstore, I believe the bookstore is shipping. I can't say this with authority, but I believe there were plans for them to ship, and also there was discussion of them doing curbside. I don't know 100% where that is. I'm not sure if our colleagues in student affairs on the call have any more information, but certainly we can look into that and get more information and post that.
Yeah.
Can I just add something?
Yes, of course, Lisa, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. So I know textbooks cost a lot of money, but I can promise you there is one book the students will get that is free. We have a tradition at the University of Maryland, the first year book program. It is a gift to every first incoming student. Sometimes the book is used in many of the students' classes. There are events. There'll be a lot of online events about the book. The book is called Weapons of Math Destruction. And every student, when they get to campus, will get a code where they can download that book. So it's a gift that we give to all new students. And it's also free. So.
Thank you for mentioning that, Lisa. We will talk a little bit more about the bookstore and their plans and pickup and how orders can be placed and how pickup will be arranged in the August Terp Family Chat. I know that's another topic that we're going to wrap into that session because our representatives from the staff members from the Stamp Student Union will be part of our Terp Family Chat in August, and that's the location of the University Book Center. And so they're going to talk a little bit more about what plans are in place for book purchases and distribution and rental. I know that we are at 8 o'clock, and for those of you who submitted questions that we simply weren't able to get to, I'm sorry that we weren't able to get to everything. We do get copies of all these questions, so if there was a question that was submitted that seems really urgent, typically your email comes along with that question unless you submitted it anonymously, and so we can follow up with you after this session. And again, we'll look through these, and if there are answers that would be great for us to put on the university's FAQ page, we will do that. We're going to post a slide on the screen now so that you have contact information. Rather than share an email address for all of the various offices that are represented tonight, I want to share the email for our office, Parent and Family Affairs. So if you have any questions related to anything you've heard tonight, please email terpfamily@umd.edu, and we will make sure your email goes to the correct place for a response. And if your student has any questions about fall classes, they should contact their academic advising office. And if they aren't sure how to do that, the list of advising offices and contact information can be found in the FAQ section on the For Maryland website. And the For Maryland website is very easy to find. It's umd.edu/4 Maryland. And then you'll get there, and then you can locate the FAQs. The link that we've provided here takes anyone right to that advising information. This ends our Terp Family Chat. I thank you for joining us this evening, and a very special thanks to my wonderful colleagues for being part of this and sharing all this great information. I appreciate all of you. And again, thanks to all of you for joining us. Have a good night.